Good afternoon and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, January 20th, 2016, and this is the Daily Rocket, and today it's time for the EU Power Rankings for the week of January 19th. I hope you are excited. I hope you're ready, because we have some interesting things to go over. Without any further ado, welcome to the show. My name is Shalthis. It is time we get down to business and talk about the best teams in Europe for this week. It probably would have helped if I had updated my ticker, but I did not. So let's take care of that right now. While we're doing that, we'll talk a little bit about what this process is like for anybody who may be unfamiliar with the EU Power Rankings, or at least just the power ranking system in general. Basically, a team of at least 3 people, but in this week in particular, it is myself, it is Cloud Fuel, it is Durkin, and it is also, for this week only, in a trial run, it is DM Rawlings and My Little Thor, all who participated in this power ranking breakdown, so to say. So all 5 of our rankings individually contributed to the top 10, basically top 15 here in Europe. So right now I'm just going to get a few little pieces of information put in place so that you all know kind of what the situation is. Right. Alright, we're good. So, with that being said, I think it's just about time that we get down to business. So, of course, we have a top 10. Like I said, we do this every single week. Well, it had been a while since we last did it. So, sorry for the hold up here. I am just trying to make sure that we have all of this stuff set up. Alright, that should do. Just save that. There we go. Much better. Anyway. Alright. So without any further ado, let us get down to business. Oh, before I get into actually digging into our top 10 and showing you what our top 10 for this week are going to be, it should be worth mentioning that little campaign that was kind of kicked off on Twitter that we talked about, which was the trying to get ESPN esports to notice Rocket League, and we're using the hashtag RL on ESPN, and I think it may have worked. One of the premier writers for ESPN's esports division noticed it, and we'll see if it goes anywhere, but that's the hope, is to see how things go. But in any event, I think we're just about ready to begin here. So here are our top 10 for this week. We'll start off at number 10, making a triumphant return to the countdown, Team Rocket. After a very successful week in Gfinity, as well as in ESL, winning the tournament and a few other events, Team Rocket surges back up 5 spots and reclaims their place at the entry to our top 10. So, the big question, of course, with Team Rocket's recent resurgence is, can they be consistent? That's always been the defining thing around Team Rocket, is consistency. Can they hold up week over week? Or will they end up having a poor week this upcoming week? What'll happen? I don't know. And Team Rocket is nearly impossible to read when it comes to that. So, in any event, their performance was stellar this week. They looked like a fantastic team. Like I said, they won ESL, got some big wins over some big teams, We'll see if they can keep that up and work up the rankings even further. But only time will tell. So Team Rocket coming in at number 10. Moving into number 9, Galactic Lions. Galactic Lions is going to move up 1 spot this week, thanks to a little bit of shifting above them. But Galactic Lions had a relatively decent week this week. Overall, not mind-blowing, but certainly worthy of giving them a little bit of an edge here in the power rankings. Now keep in mind, a lot of these rankings wound up being exceptionally close. So despite the fact that we number 1 through 10, it's not always a case of the rankings averaging out to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In fact, just to give you a little idea of what that is actually like, in this particular case, Team Rocket averaged out to 9.4, Galactic Lions averaged out to 9.2. So that's how close this was. 0.2% of an average point is what put them just ahead. But in any event, getting Team Rocket back into the top 10 is good. Getting Galactic Lions up a spot is also good. So congratulations to the Lions for a very impressive run lately, looking like a very challenging team to beat in recent weeks. So we'll see if they can keep that up. Now moving into number 8, the Three Musketeers. They're going to drop a couple spots here because, well, after a really stunning week a few weeks back, they haven't had a chance to really back that up. They ended up making it through ESL, but they dropped in that tournament, which ultimately Team Rocket would win. But Three Musketeers, still a formidable team, still the kind of team that I think deserves this spot, and just has a little bit more work to do to remain consistent and maybe pick up some bigger wins to climb those ranks. So we shall see how that all works out for them. But the Three Musketeers securely in that number 8 spot, despite dropping a few places here. Coming in at number 7, Noble Esports. So Noble made their RLC Pro League debut this past Sunday. They're going to shoot up a couple of spots from the last power ranking where they were at number 9. And that's really based off of their performance against Flipside Tactics. In that 5-game set, they ended up taking the first 2 games before Marky Duda would return. So that was against a Flipside that consisted of Mike Rules, Cookseer, and Bipod. So a pretty sturdy team there that they ended up taking 2 games off of. And it showed a couple of things. It showed the current flaws with Flipside's formula. They aren't quite the dominant squad they used to be. And it also showed that Noble may have found something that clicks. So going forward, we'll have to see how Noble does against other teams. They're going to be playing MyXMG this upcoming Sunday in the RLC Pro League. So that's another 5 games. And very well based off of that result, we could see how they move up maybe a little bit further. But for now, Noble Esports securing number 7. That takes us to our number 6 spot, Spectral. Despite a, what's the good word for this? Shellacking at the hands of Crown and Jewels, Spectral will move up 1 spot here, just based off a lot of the movement around them as well. They had a very difficult week in the Pro League, going down 0-5 to Crown and Jewels, the second team to do that in recent weeks. But if they can be anything like Supersonic Avengers, then the next week they'll look great. But in any event, Spectral did take quite a beating, and still has some work to do here. So despite the fact they moved up a spot, it may have more to do with everything that happened around them. Again, looking at the averages here, if we go to... So basically, the 5 and 6 teams and the 1 and 2 teams were the only teams where we were all unanimous in our choices on the power rankings. So we felt this was a good place for Spectral, based off of how they've been, based off the wins they have. So worth that. But they're going to have to keep it up, hopefully recover in the next week to see how well they do. But in any event, Spectral in at number 6. So number 5, MyXMG. No movement on their part. Well, I have to... Hold on. Thought I had that off. There we go. Okay, sorry, don't need that right now. So MyXMG in at number 5. No movement on their part, but based off of their recent wins, they didn't do a lot of playing this week, but that's okay. They haven't really done anything to lose their spot nor gain any more progression, So all in all, a good earning to get them in at number 5. And really nothing much to say about MyXMG. They had a decent week in Gfinity. Didn't play in the RLC Pro League this week. This was their bye. But they are going to come back and face off against Noble Esports next Sunday. So don't miss that. So MyXMG in at number 5. Number 4. Come on. There we go. SK Gaming, formerly tied at number 2. SK Gaming drops a couple of spots after taking quite the beating by Supersonic Avengers during this past Sunday's RLC Pro League. 2/3 of the team also played in Gfinity, but we don't really count that because 2/3 of Supersonic Avengers also played and won. But it's a very different team dynamic when you don't have your full squad available. But all in all, when the teams were at full strength, they did meet again in the Pro League and lost 4-1, 4 games to 1 against Supersonic Avengers. So as far as SK goes, obviously the big concern here is after they've lost Yemen, they've kind of dipped a bit in overall performance. Don't know if that's just a lack of working with that, basically that current team unit that they have and consistently getting play off of that, or if there's something deeper involved. But either way, SK Gaming does have work to do in order to crawl back up these rankings, but currently they sit at number 4, which means at number 3 is Supersonic Avengers, moving up 1 spot over last week's performance. They gained this because of that big 4-1 win over SK Gaming. Now, the fact that Greasy and Maestro were on the same team with Scrubkilla that won Gfinity on Friday doesn't hurt, but it's less of a factor. The more important thing is their normal complement with ELMP ended up taking a set of games convincingly against SK Gaming, looking like a dominant premier EU team. Now I know this is 1 week removed from their big 0-5 loss to Crown and Jewels, but what we've seen out of Crown and Jewels lately, I don't know what team is really going to challenge them, but we're going to find out next week because Crown and Jewels meets Flipside Tactics in the RLC Pro League. So either way, Supersonic Avengers moving up a place into number 3, and that takes us to our final 2. This is where things get interesting because the question always comes up: who is going to do it? Is somebody going to take that number 1 spot? Was this the week? Was there a changing of the guard per se? Well, are you ready to find out? I think you are. I hope you are. You're going to see which 2 teams. I think you know what the 2 teams are. It's pretty clear what those 2 teams are because they're not on this list yet. But the order is the real question. Where do they lie? Without any further ado, in number 2, Flipside Tactics, which means at number 1, Crown and Jewels, both teams swapping a place here. Former 1 and 2, now 2 and 1, Flipside Tactics, coming off of a 3-2 series win over Noble Esports, but Crown and Jewels coming off of a 5-0 shellacking, as I said earlier, of Spectral. What we've seen lately from Crown and Jewels, and the reason that they are topping off these power rankings this week, is because they are proving to be one of the most powerful and dominant teams in Europe right now. Now, consistency is always key. The fact that they consistently, over 2 weeks, completely blew out their opponents. Not only that, but in terms of being a team unit, have had the most high-level performance, breaking over 500 in their overall shot percentage in the Pro League, and just looking damn hard to beat, is why they are at number 1. Now, Flipside. In this particular spot, the reason we put them at number 2, and this was a unanimous decision by the entire Pro League. Now I say unanimous not because we gathered together and discussed who we want to rank. We independently, without any other insight, rank these teams. We don't meet up, we don't discuss it, we just say, based off the information we have and the criteria we set, how do we personally want to rank these teams? All 5 members of the committee this week put Crown and Jewels number 1 and Flipside number 2. Part of this has to do with the fact that Flipside is losing some of their luster. While they are still a premier team with premier players and will likely consistently win tournaments and events, they're starting to not be as dominant as they used to be. And because this is a power ranking, this is not necessarily ranking the best teams in the world. It kind of is, but it's also ranking the teams that have the most power, the teams that are the most effective. And as it stands right now, Crown and Jewels is the most effective and dominant team in Europe over the last several weeks. And I think they can hold on to that for a while. We're going to see how this goes because next week is going to be a big deciding factor. We could see a changing of the guard based off of next week's performance. Aside from Gfinity, we have both of these teams playing head-to-head in a set of 5 games in the RLC Pro League. So, depending on how Crown and Jewels and Flipside does, they could swap spots again. And this could be another 1-week anomaly in Flipside's regular dominant showing. But we'll have to see, because that's a big test for them to go up against Crown and Jewels, just like it's a big test for Crown and Jewels. This is one of the first teams that Crown and Jewels is going to face that will really and truly put them to the test. But as it stands right now, Crown and Jewels tops off the EU Power Rankings in the #1 spot. So congratulations to them, taking #1. Let's see if they can hold on to it for more than 1 week. SK Gaming couldn't do it, but we'll see if Flipside can. So, there you have it. There is your top 10 in Europe for this week. Who are Crown and Jewels? Crown and Jewels consists of Pashy, Yeezy, formerly known as Godlight, Siki, also known as Sikizem, and Killer Number 7, who is also part of that roster. So, they're not just, some flash-in-the-pan team. They are a very effective unit. And like I said, they have broken basically more than half of their shots are goals. They have turned into goals. And that shows just really effective striking. That's from their Pro League stats and everything there, so good stuff. But yeah, Yeezy is formerly Godlight, but the same kind of team there. See that Godlight is here. So glad you're here to witness your team moving to #1. So anyway, in any event, let's turn to the chat. It is question and answer time. You know how this works. If you have questions about the power rankings, it looks like both DM Rawlings and Thor are in the chat. 2 of our trial members for this week on the EU Power Rankings. So let's see. Who is Utred? Utred is a very generous personality. Somebody who kind of showed up on the Rocket League scene and was super generous to a lot of people. Was a very nice guy. Was trying to do his best to help the scene. Hasn't been around lately, though he did, I think, pop his nose into the Pro League stream last Sunday and subscribed to RLC. But he's otherwise been kind of low on the radar, tending to his own real life stuff. But yeah, he's a great person. Haven't talked to him in a while. Hopefully he'll be around at some point in the near future to do something. I'll go ahead and turn on the alert thing now, since we're done with the power rankings. But, yeah. He's a good guy. He's a very good guy. A+. 10 out of 10. Best game. Anyway. So, yeah, again, questions are open. If you have any questions about the rankings, why we put teams in certain places, like I said, both DM Rawlings and Thor are here. So feel free to pop your question in the chat. I will answer it to the best of my ability. You can ask about the power rankings, about the competitive Rocket League scene, about the game itself, or really whatever the heck else you want. So, go fire away with anything you may have. Good question. Spectral over Noble. So, I think the reason we put Spectral over Noble here mainly had to do with Noble's recent showing being this week, and the lack of performance and the lack of play they've had over the last few weeks. So, like we typically do, and this is something we do with a lot of teams, while we might bump them up for a big 1-week showing, we do try to keep an eye on consistency. That's why you'll never see like a brand new team, like even if a brand new team showed up on the scene and beat Crown and Jewels or beat Flipside Tactics, we're not going to shoot them to #1, but we are going to give them a pretty good ranking spot because those are big, sizable wins. And at this point, Spectral got clobbered by Crown and Jewels, there's no denying that, but so did Supersonic Avengers. So we have to chalk that up to, they lost to the team they should have lost to, you know? Whereas Noble took a couple of games off of Flipside, which is very good. That bumped them up a few spots. If they keep this up, have a good showing against my XMG, then they'll go up even further. So we have to take it week to week. As of this week, that's probably why they got that treatment. in that particular place. So doing the power rankings isn't about building hype for any other tournament. It's just about our own opinions as for what teams we think are the best right now. And that's why we have a team of 5 people, generally, at least 3, but sometimes 5 now, doing these trials, which will give 5 independent perspectives on who we think the top team should be. And like I said, independently, we all felt that Crown and Jewels has just been the more premier and dominant team this past few weeks and earned that #1 spot. Now, as for my XMG and Galactic Lions and Team Rocket, you know, it's all personal opinion. Sometimes, you know, we have our own criteria. Team Rocket won ESL. They got big wins over. I mean, they ended up doing better than teams above them. But because they were in 15th place last week, they didn't just shoot straight up. So, all right, I'm sure I'm missing questions here. Hold on. Answered that. Answered Spectral over Noble. Yep. Yeah, answered about that. Talked about all that. Okay. It's about consistency when it comes to these rankings. If there are teams that are better than Rocket and Lions, then they will move up into the rankings and those teams will move down. It'll happen week over week. That's just the way it works. When am I going to cast with Broken again? I don't know. Hopefully someday we'll get the chance. But I don't know when that's going to be. Talking about Paladins. Prediction for Crown and Jewels versus Flipside. I don't expect a 5-0. Granted, I didn't expect a 5-0 the first week or the second week, but I don't expect a 5-0 this week. I'm going to go with 3-2 Crown and Jewels. That's my thought right now, just based off of what I've seen lately. So, we'll see. A lot of things have changed, but we'll find out. How close do you think the top 5 is together? Do I think my XMG could beat Crown and Jewels, or is there a gap? I mean, there is a gap. Do I think they could beat them? I don't know. You know, based off what I've seen out of Crown and Jewels lately, they can get shutout victories over teams I don't expect them to get shutout victories against. I certainly didn't expect them to go 5-0 against Supersonic, nor did I expect them to go 5-0 against Spectral. So, excuse me, I was very surprised by that. And that just, I don't know if that's just Pro League, if that's just how they're performing in Pro League, and maybe other tournaments they won't be so lucky. But, you know, I think that matters. I don't know if my XMG could necessarily beat Crown and Jewels. There is a gap here. I mean, I'll give you the averages so you can kind of see what this is going down through the top 5. Crown and Jewels and Flipside, we all ranked identical, so their average out to be number 1 and 2. Supersonic Avengers was averaged at 3.4, SK at 3.6, and my XMG at 5. So that should give you a little bit of an indication of what we feel is the split, the proper split. So there's a bit of a gap between my XMG and SK, though SK, they got some work to do. I'll be honest with you, they got some work to do. There's less of a gap between SK and Supersonic Avengers despite this past week's performance. I think over the last few weeks, they've both had their ups and downs. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into what I'm talking about there. Can you show me a picture of a cube balanced on its side? I mean, I don't know why. Okay. Yeah, between 3 and 4 and 9 and 10 and 7 and 8 were all 0.2 points from each other. So there were a few very close things here on this these top 10. Alright, what does SK need to do to get better? Well, it's a good question. I mean, I'm not their coach. I haven't really broken their games down. I think more effective striking is definitely top of the list. That's one thing I've not really seen well out of them, as well as kind of building up that offensive pressure. It's something they did well when Yemen was on the team. He was a very effective striker, very effective at setting up offensive chances. So they need to substitute that and find a good replacement to continue that sort of strategy. But I think those little changes will help them a lot. They're not a bad team by any stretch, but they are definitely struggling right now. Alright, how much skill do I think the pro scene has versus how much luck? I mean, there's a lot of skill involved. It's not, you know, an age thing. It's just being able to control and manipulate the car. That involves a lot of good reaction time, awareness of the physics of the game, how the game plays. You can be 12 and still be successful, but the scene is still very young, so the fact that Scrubkilla is a very dominant player right now, he is also teamless, and he may not be that premier player in 1 or 2 months' time. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. So that's the thing. Let's see here. Alright, what the hell do you want me to look at here? Okay. I mean, it's fine. It is definitely a picture of a cube balanced on its side. I mean, hell, if you want to see it, there it is. Boom. Cube on its side. There's the link. Anyway. Yeah, having a high average of saves per game is good. I mean, it shows its quality defense, but it also shows that you're lacking offensive pressure because you're letting your opponents just fire away at you. Now, keep in mind, if you look at the shot totals that Supersonic Avengers have had, they have 96 shots over 10 games. They are relentless. So it doesn't surprise me that SK also has a very high save count per game. So everybody likes the cube. How many apples do I eat a day? None. No apples. I don't really have many apples around. I mean, I'd be alright with I'm okay with apples. I have nothing personal against them. Pears are alright. Pears are good too. It's quality stuff. Anyway. Well, not today. It's Daily Rocket time. There's no gameplay. This is the EU Power Rankings show, damn it. And you know how this thing works? That's what my Wednesdays are. Every Wednesday at around 3 o'clock, that's what we do. EU Rankings. So anyway. Any other questions? Because now's the time. If you have questions, comments, concerns... I don't have a favorite team. I am too involved in everything to have a favorite. Technically, I guess it would be SNK, since that's my team. But I don't pick favorites. I know, and I have friends on practically every team on the competitive scene, you know, to one level or another. So I don't like to pick favorites. Plus, I'm a shoutcaster, so... The blooming new meta of the Merc. I haven't really seen that meta in action too much, but hell, if it proves to be effective, maybe a bigger, slower car ends up being the big game changer. Haven't really seen it yet, though. How do you get better at Rocket League? Play. A lot. Watch other people play, see what they do, the decisions they make, and then just keep playing a lot. And you will gradually get better. I didn't say it was a joke. I just said I hadn't seen it yet. If I see it start to show up a little bit more, then by all means. Yeah, I think we put... yeah, we put Team Rocket a little bit higher, but it averaged out to put them in 10th spot, which is fine. Fine by me. Yes, that's a strong meta. You see that a lot in unranked and at standard play. If I start seeing more mercs in the competitive scene, then we'll see. But alright, little ways to go again. If you have any more questions. The teams that are 1 through 15 are actually scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now. The on the bubble teams. Those are the order that they are in. So Firewall, Stoic, Lose Much Rating, Manteca Football Club, or Manteca FC, and Comrade Gaming. Sorry. I think team flags would be great. My concern is what teams do you put in there? Because, you know, the real issue is that teams are breaking up and disbanding and changing so constantly that can be kind of hard. Like, if you had asked me that question a few months ago, I would have said, oh, you should put Vanquish in there, and you should put a Cosmic Aftershock flag in there, and, you know, obviously those particular teams don't exist, so... I think they should do it, maybe when the scene gets a little more stable and we know what teams are definitely going to be under what sponsors and all of that, so... I think custom flags would be good, or at least the ability to import a logo that you could add to your car, and like basically the idea would be to have a team mode in the game, where you can create a team, design logos and branding and color schemes and all that sort of stuff that's consistent across all the cars, or at least somewhat consistent. So, even for Pro League teams, because there are some teams who could have made the Pro League and they're no longer around. Like Gold Rush was on the verge of being a Pro League team, and they're gone. The teams change too rapidly right now. Custom would be good. Don't know if they'll do it, but custom would be good. Other than that, I don't know which flags they would or should add. But yeah, the average there on the bottom, I mean, again, that's because we all rank them differently. Like Thor said, we all ranked these teams differently, especially when you get past number 10, it gets a lot harder to rank these teams. Like, for example, I didn't even put LMR in my top 15, but because almost everybody else did, the averaged out up to that spot. In fact, in the final few spots here, now Boots and Cats ended up being in a 16th spot. I don't know why they're highlighted here, but in any event, it was 14.4 for Manteca, 14.6 for Comrade, 14.8 for Boots and Cats. So, it's a very close, you know, break between these teams, and that's where it gets as you go further and further down here. You know, 15.5 for ... 15.75 for Torched and Via RL. 16 is basically that's our general tie below 15 because we don't rank below 15, so a lot of teams fall into that. But that's what I mean. Like, there's such a slight breakdown between that stuff. Prize pool DLC? I don't know if you'll quite see that. I have had this thought that you might see, like, microtransactions enter the game at some point. so they can introduce new wheels and new textures and new paint jobs and new toppers and all that new customizable stuff to the game at small individual prices instead of just one large DLC price. But that's their call. I don't know what their plans are financially. That's a big thing I'm sure they've put a lot of thought into, is the long-term financial position, 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line. If this becomes a legitimate esport, the game still has to maintain itself, so what's their strategy? So I don't know what that's going to be. T3M's position? Yeah, so T3M, I put them personally at number 9. They averaged out to fall into the number 8 spot, and I put them there because they ended up, I think they lost directly to Team Rocket, if I remember correctly. I'd have to double check that. But they lost to Team Rocket in ESL. They hadn't had a lot of other major wins. In fact, if I go through and look back at the wins and losses breakdown sheet that I have here. So, Three Musketeers got shut out by Spectral in the monthly final, lost to Team Rocket, and they beat Lose Much Rating and Yep. And that's really about it. That was their performance this past week. So that's why I put them where they are. Other people, I can't explain why they would put them where they did, but that's why I put them where they ranked. Wasn't a very good week for them. Other teams had better weeks. And when you get to that point, little wins here and there can cause a lot more movement. Like, there's more movement that'll happen based off of a week-to-week performance in the 5 through 10 spots than in the 1 through 5, just because of how it tends to work. Why did I put Crown and Jewels at number 1? I put Crown and Jewels at number 1 because of their dominating performance lately. You didn't play in Gfinity, but I don't think that's as much of a factor as everything else that's happened over the last, several weeks. Not only has Crown and Jewels, beat Firewall, beat Galactic Lions, beat Spectral in the monthly final, but also 5-0'd Spectral 2 days later, or a few days later, in RLC Pro League. So it's just been consistent wins, and you've looked like the premier team, so it's a well-deserved spot. I don't know who's going to be hosting the broadcast on Sunday. I think it's going to be JamesBot, Shogun, and the Pash. Probably the same way that we did it last Sunday. So I don't think I'll be casting on Sunday, but I haven't heard definitively what that is going to be. I have said that before, but the thing is too, you don't always get a chance to see 1 and 2 play each other. So as the scene is evolving the way it is, we have to look at the bigger picture, and we have to look at everything that's kind of happened and the effectiveness of a lot of these wins. And with the Pro League, that kind of helps, because a win 3-2 might not be as effective as a 5-0, depending on who the opponents are. And yeah, just over the last few weeks, because like I said, this is a power ranking. It's not saying these are the best teams in the world, the best players in the world. It's just based off of their latest performance. Crown and Jewels kind of clearly has owned that number 1 spot, and a lot of other people thought so. But like I said, those 2 spots can flip depending on how the Pro League goes, because then we're finally going to get Crown and Jewels versus Flipside Crown and Jewels versus Flipside in a 5-game set. So those spots could flip again. It's entirely possible. Cosmic plays in the Pro League. They did. I don't know. That's just the way we felt this week. Just based off of everything, that Crown and Jewels felt like the premier team. And like I said, it'll probably... Yeah, and like I think Thor is saying, I'm not sure what the deal is with IRCL. it feels a lot like some teams are taking it really seriously, some aren't, some are playing, some aren't. And I know that that doesn't really matter, but I'm trying to get a really big picture here, look at everything. And I don't know, I mean, this week I feel confident as to why I put Crown and Jewels at number 1. I think everybody else does too. That's why we all did it. And that could very well change as of Sunday. We'll find out. Well, there is Gfinity on Friday, which will be on Twitch. There is RLC Pro League on Sunday, which will also be on Twitch. So, yeah. So that's the big thing. I mean, here's the big thing I can tell you from this. You know, if you like the number 1 and 2 or you agree with it, great. If you disagree with it, that's fine too. I think both opinions are justified. I think this week you could have said Flipside should remain number 1. We decided against that. That's cool. You know, we're entitled to do that. Now, this week, this Sunday, we're going to see Flipside Tactics versus Crown and Jewels. And it's pretty clear to say that the winner of that will probably be number 1 next week. I think that's a fairly safe assumption. A lot of that can also depend on Gfinity, too. Because we'll see if both of these teams play in Gfinity. That could cause a bit of a shift as well. I don't know. We'll find out after Sunday and see how everything goes. Oh, what are my thoughts on Scrubkilla? I will gladly answer that. So, yeah, Scrubkilla played with Maestro and Greasy from Supersonic Avengers this past Friday for Gfinity, and he was devastating. Like, it was fantastic. And they ended up winning the tournament over Flipside and really looking like a very impressive team. I think that's good for Scrub. I hope that it results in him getting a little more exposure and getting, you know, some notice by some top teams that he can, like, Yemen says he's on a team. If he is, I missed it. I missed him signing on the new team, but in any event, I mean, he's a very, very talented player and deserves all the success and the praise he's been getting, so it's good stuff. Yeah, that game right there, that Flipside versus Crown and Jewels match is probably going to be the most exciting thing you'll see on Sunday, but the whole thing is always fantastic to watch. And it seems like I'm probably going to get to watch it as a spectator, so not a caster, which I'm actually very excited for. So I'm looking forward to watching and enjoying the event from that perspective. Well, no, not you. I mean Scrubkilla. I'm talking about Scrubkilla. I know you're not. I know you're still got stuff going on. I don't even know if you're gonna. Are you even considering coming back to Rocket League? I don't know if that's a decision you want to make. But I meant Scrubkilla. I don't know if he's on a team. If Scrub is on a team, you said that he was. So I don't know. I mean, being on the Pro League roster doesn't mean he's part of the team. The teams on the Pro League have picked subs because you had to choose a sub. You had to sign up for subs to make sure you had them available. Okay, Scrub isn't on a team. Point being, he should be on one. He's a very skilled and effective player. I'm sure his age might be a concern for teams who want to sign him. But regardless of that, he's a very effective player, and I'm sure we'll hopefully see him on a squad at some point in the future, now that Gold Rush is no longer really around. But, I mean, technically they exist, but they're not even the same team anymore, so that's why they're not on these rankings. They kind of lose that spot because they're a completely different team. Alright, let me explain that. So, members of the teams are decided by the teams themselves. You know, some teams will register their roster for the Pro League to include subs so that those players can't play for other teams and that they have somebody available who's willing to fill in on those days. It doesn't mean that they're an official member of the team, but it means they're on the sub list, just like Bipod. Bipod is an official sub on the Pro League list for Flipside Tactics, but I don't think he's officially part of Flipside. So that's what I mean. It'll get really big. The problem is that it's not really big right now, so a lot of these players aren't signed to teams. When the scene gets bigger, players are going to get signed to teams, and there's not going to be that ambiguity of having a sub or not having a sub. Because if players are part of a sponsored team, like a big size team and being paid to play, they're going to show up because that's their job, you know? So the need for subs is not really going to be there. Or they're going to have officially signed subs. So you could see a lot of Pro League teams going with like a 4-man roster, so to say, maybe picking up players who can fill in that might not otherwise be a front three on a top tier team, or they could be, but they'll play because they're getting paid for it. So Team Rocket, I don't think they'll drop all the way to 15th, but it will depend on a lot of things. Because it'll depend on the results of every other team, and especially Team Rocket. Yeah, A-Money's on the list for Cosmic, and we know that he's not officially a part of that team, but he's on their sub list. So the sub list is independent for Pro League. It just affects Pro League. It doesn't mean that those members are officially part of the team yet. If you don't play Gfinity, it's not inherently bad. If you play ESL and not Gfinity, if you play nothing, that could be bad. It probably won't drop you to 15th, but it'll all depend. Right, Morbo. That's what I mean. Like eventually, when the scene gets bigger and there's money involved, then organizations can sign not only a front three for the team, but they can also sign substitutes who are all getting paid to be a part of the team, so there's no incentive or no problem with being a sub. But it's all because the scene is so small that we have to kind of have a little leeway in that regard. I don't think I'd ever want to see... Or do you mean like 6 players per team? Because 4 cars is enough per side. Like, that's even pushing it. 6 per side would, regardless of the map size, would just be mental. It's not about making the map bigger so you can fit more cars in. It's about, you know, because the cars are going to be generally where the ball is. You know? So it's just going to be an absolute cluster. If you're talking about regular 3v3 on a bigger map, yeah, I'd be down for that. Any kind of non-standard map I'd be totally down for. How big do I see Rocket League getting in the next year or so? I hope really big. You know, I'm hoping things really start to take off this year, and the big news hits, and all the major tournaments start opening up, and everything else. So I really hope that happens. In a year or two, it's going to depend a lot on how well this year goes, but I'm really hoping for the best. Yeah, we'll start to see pro teams. I mean, we already are seeing pro teams right now, you know. Teams that are getting paid to play Rocket League. And I think we'll start seeing more and more as the scene gets bigger. And it's slowly getting there. We're doing as much as we can from our side. But hopefully soon. Alright, I think I answered every question. At least as much as I can. So we'll do one final call. If you have any questions about the power rankings, about the competitive scene, about the game in general, please fire away. Let me know. Drop them in the question box here on Twitch. The chat box, the question box, the chat, you know, whatever. Nistion, thank you for the follow. How is the future of Rocket League Central? Future's good. Future's very good. Pro League's looking great. We want to do more. That kind of segues into what Yemen just asked. We want to do more in that regard. I don't know of any 1v1 pro tournaments right now. There was the one that I tried to do, but my ability to host and coordinate an entire tournament based off of what my work log is like right now is not really possible. So we're trying to do it through RLC. We'd like to grow that and host more tournaments and more events on RLC. but that's going to take some time as we, you know, handle everything else we're doing. The Pro League is a big priority right now, but more should be coming, hopefully. Blitz? I don't know. An EU team? Yeah, I'm looking at the right list here. I am not making a living off of Rocket League. I do freelance work. I do freelance writing, graphic design, video editing, things like that. That's how I make the majority of what I make. But, you know, I rely a bit on... I do have a paid shoutcasting gig right now, a recurring gig there. So hopefully more will come to that. And I also, of course, you know, really appreciate the donations and things which I've gotten over the past few weeks. That helps a ton, too. But otherwise, I do the freelance stuff to pay the bills. Hopefully soon, though, I'll be able to do the Rocket League streaming, YouTube, all that stuff full-time, and not have to bother with freelance stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a 16-player tournament 1v1. Something that, with a pool that could get some players involved, that'd be good. Hopefully. Alright. Cool, so, looks like the chat's quieted down. So I think what we're going to do is probably wrap this up at the moment. A successful EU power ranking show. It has gotten progressively darker as I've sat here, because I decided not to turn on the light because I was like, oh, the light's going to be fine. Well, an hour later, not so fine, and it's very moody right now. But it is what it is. Question here. Do you think that the current spread difference between EU and NA will even out as the season progresses, or we will continue to see Crown and Jewels dominate EU and have generally more even competition in NA? I don't expect Crown and Jewels to continue 5-0ing everybody, but I didn't expect them to be 10-0 right now. I didn't expect any team to be 10-0 right now. So I would expect by the end of the season we'll see a little more even play between both divisions. Is my guess, at least. But we'll see. I don't know. Well, thank you, Lipusari. I hope I can make it big off of Rocket League. Whether it's doing shoutcasting alone or doing these things for YouTube and Twitch, you know, it's all good. But that is the hope. Oh, well, thank you all very much. Much appreciated. Yeah. I'm finding my place in the dark side. So be it. You die. But alright. I think we're good. So let's wrap up for now. I'll be back streaming later tonight. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't think I'm going to do Rocket League tonight. I was thinking about Undertale. I'm thinking about playing Undertale. We'll see. I'll make that decision later. In any event, though, I'm going to wrap up for now. Thank you all so much for being a part of this, for the follows, for the questions, and for all your feedback about today's top 10. I will be back on Friday with the NA top 10, and I'll of course be back tomorrow with another Daily Rocket for God only knows what we're going to do, but we'll see what's going to happen. In any event, thank you all again. Take care, have a great rest of your night, and I will see you all next time.